This is the Brahmagiri Range in western India, the starting point of the Godavari River. From this height, the Arabian Sea is clearly visible, sitting just 80 kilometers to the west down a steep natural drop. Instead of taking that short path to the coast, the water heads in the exact opposite direction, carving its way across 1,465 kilometers of the Indian peninsula to reach the Bay of Bengal. This river exists in two extremes. For 9 months of the year, it lies dormant, resembling a dry desert. But during the monsoon, it can transform overnight into a force that moves 3.6 million cusecs of water, enough to swallow entire cities. A massive river flowing away from the nearest ocean and across a dry plateau is a geographical outlier, one created by a massive geological shift millions of years ago. 66 million years ago, as an asteroid struck the planet, the Earth's crust split open right here in India. Giant rivers of lava flooded over 1 million square kilometers, creating a prehistoric cataclysm known as the Deccan Traps. This event forced a permanent tilt in the Indian tectonic plate. The massive weight of the cooling lava lifted the western edge of the continent, creating a forced downward slope toward the east. You can still see the physical remnants of this disaster today in the Western Ghats. These stepped basaltic cliffs are the cooled layers of that ancient lava flood. Because of this slope, the Godavari is forced to drain a basin covering nearly 10% of India's landmass. And because it sits on a tilted plateau far from the Himalayas, it has no melting glaciers to feed it. It lives and dies by the seasonal monsoon rains. The Godavari is a geographical prisoner, locked into an eastward journey across an arid landscape by a prehistoric tilt in the Earth's crust. The river sustains itself through two very different tributary systems. Streams on the right bank crawl through dry, rain-shadow regions to provide water for cities like Hyderabad, while the left bank gathers massive monsoon runoff from dense, heavy jungles. The system's primary engine is the Pranhita River. Though it is relatively short, it funnels the combined flow of 3 other major rivers into the Godavari, providing 34% of its total volume. When the Pranhita joins the main flow at Kaleshwaram, the Godavari stops being a modest river and expands into a miles-wide churning waterway. This reliable surge of water allowed ancient empires like the Satavahanas to thrive on the plateau, establishing global trade routes and building massive religious centers like the Takat Sachkhand Sri Hazur Sahib on its banks. But as modern populations grew, we stopped simply living alongside the river and began trying to dictate exactly where and how it flows. Following independence, India began a massive engineering effort to green the dry Deccan Plateau. This led to water wars between states and the construction of giant concrete barriers like the Jayakwai Dam. The scale of these projects is immense. The Kaleshwaram project uses massive subterranean motors to physically pull river water out of the ground and force it backward and uphill to reach high-altitude farms. In October 2023, the limits of this engineering were exposed. Without warning, a massive crack formed in the Medagata barrage as a concrete pillar sank over a meter into the ground. Beneath the surface, the river's current had quietly washed away the sand supporting the heavy concrete pillars. The river essentially hollowed out the foundation of the project until the structure collapsed. The river's raw power is most visible at the Papikonda Gorge. Here, the entire volume of the Godavari is squeezed through narrow rock walls, creating deep, boiling whirlpools and high-velocity currents. Despite spending billions on concrete and steel, we are still struggling to contain a river that has been carving through rock for millions of years. At the end of its journey, the Godavari creates the KG Delta. This region acts as India's rice bowl and sits directly on top of massive natural gas reserves. Before it reaches the coast, the river becomes so wide that a bridge over 2 kilometers long is required just to reach the other side. However, because so much water is now diverted into upstream dams, the river no longer reaches the coast with enough pressure to push back the ocean. This drop in freshwater pressure allows salt water from the Bay of Bengal to seep deep into the groundwater. It creeps in beneath the topsoil, slowly poisoning the very land used for farming. The delta is being turned into a barren desert from the bottom up. As the salt water rises, the soil loses its ability to sustain the crops that feed millions. While the delta silently dies, the river still draws millions of pilgrims for the Pushkaram festivals. With the next major gathering set for 2027, the religious reverence for the river has never been higher. It is a strange irony. A river that survived a prehistoric lava flood is now being suffocated in its final miles by the same civilization that depends on it for life.